Kaplan collaboration. Haley will be going over the graduate admission prep for the MCAT, DT, and the GRE. And if you guys have any questions about the studying, test dates, and scoring, she will go all over that. And at the end, she will have it open for any questions. So don't feel free to ask anything. And yeah, I think you're muted. Okay,
Okay, how about now?
perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for that fantastic introduction. I am Haley. I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the different graduate exams. So we're going to cover MCAT, GRE, OAT, DAT, and then mention a little bit about how PCAT is no longer required or examined. So, getting into it, you all get discounts, special discounts for being MAPS members because we are partners with MAPS. So, as a member, you get 15% off any Kaplan MCAT courses, but also DAT, OAT, and GRE as well. And then this campaign, so every semester, every quarter, we have a campaign. This campaign, we're actually going to be giving away $20,000 towards any sort of grad school. It can be medical school, it can be getting a PhD, it can be any sort of like business school, anything that you end up going into. You can use this $20,000 towards your tuition. It's free to enter. It's just first name, last name. It's what this QR code is going to bring you to. You'll record your year and it'll get you entered to win. That $20,000 will basically just, oh, interesting. Thanks for letting me know. How about now? Are we good? Thanks, Gavin. Um, Let me know if, yeah, the issues come up with the screen or anything like you just did would be awesome. Okay, so if you wanted to sign up for that, it's just that QR code. I'm also gonna have these slides sent out afterwards as well. So if you miss anything, you'll be able to access it. So, jumping into MCAT, we like to help students decide when they're going to be testing from going off of when you want to be applying. So, if you're hoping to go straight into med school following your undergrad, you are going to be applying during the June-ish area, May to June-ish area between your junior and senior year, your third year, fourth year. So from there, we kind of work backwards. We know that it takes about a month to get our MCAT score back. So you want to budget that into your timeline. If I'm wanting to apply in May, I always recommend testing in March at the latest because that gives you all of April to wait for your score back and then to also compile and really refine the rest of your application. From there, we walk back even further. Most students are going to be studying for around 3 to 4 months. That's around 20 hours a week. So if you're someone who knows that you do not have 20 hours a week either way to be studying for this exam, you might just want to stretch it out to 4 to 5 months. There's no perfect schedule. Instead, we really recommend working off of hours, so 300 to 350 hours. And every individual is going to be different in terms of where they spend those hours and how frequently they're hitting them. So if I'm testing in March, then I want to walk back at least 4 months to know when to begin prepping. In this case, I should be starting in November. Again, you can always accelerate that, decelerate that, whatever works for you, but this is a broad timeline. If you're hoping to take one gap year, you push that back by a year, and then two, you push it back by 2 years, so on and so forth. Most med schools are accepting MCAT scores from 2 to 3 years back, so you can always take your MCAT and then decide to take a gap year. Just check with your different institutions because you don't want to think that it's 3 years, but they only accept 2 years, and then you'll have to retest. So, the different recommendations I make in terms of really going through these hours. The AMC again recommends about 20 hours a week for 3 months. That breaks down to about 240. We do recommend the 350 hours. Ideally, that's what you're hitting. If you're self-studying, it's going to be definitely on the 350-hour side of things, potentially even 400 hours. We recommend this because some percent of test takers actually are not going to study. So some people are going straight into their MCAT without doing fully functional prep or comprehensive prep. And then some people are also just going to be average, right? We want you to be above average. You're already a part of this group, you're a part of different organizations on campus that are going to set you apart. But because the MCAT is such an indicator of success for med school, and because you're going to be compared to thousands of other applications, we do recommend the 300 to 350 hours because it's what we've seen make a competitive MCAT score. Um, we talked a little bit about the timeline portion of things for figuring out when to study. There's a few helpful ways you can do this if you have some information. So if you know that you are taking your exam in 12 weeks and you really need to focus the rest of your studying and you want to hit those 300 hours, you're going to be studying about 25 hours per week. So this is helpful for people who have already scheduled their MCAT. But you can also work backwards. So if you are a year or two out from taking this exam and you want to really build out your schedule, you can go forward and know, okay, I'm going to have 14 hours in my week to be able to commit to studying. So from there, I know my schedule. How many weeks do I have to study in order to hit those 300 hours? It's going to be 21 weeks. So that's just two different ways that we like to introduce beginning to think about when to study for this exam, when to take it. If you have any questions, my information is going to be at the end of this slide. I'll hang around to answer questions, but if anything comes up outside of this meeting, we can go over this, help you to figure out when to study, when to test, stuff like that. So, speaking of the exam itself, you're going to see 7 different science sections. You're going to have biology, your Gen Chem, OChem, and physics. These tend to be the lab courses for a lot of pre-med students. And then you're also going to be tested on biochem, psychology, and sociology. These areas, biochem, psych, and soc, they vary from institution to institution on whether or not they are collegiate level prerequisites. So you want to be sure that if you do not have biochemistry or psychology in your prerequisites to take before you graduate, you want to be comfortable either self-studying, self-teaching. You might want to take an accessory course at like a community college, something like that, just so that you have a higher level of prep in terms of psych and soc. So there's a few different ways about go about studying for this exam, content review, non-content review. We help break it down for you in terms of instructional order. This is also really helpful if you have a book set that might have been gifted to you from a friend or from some family members, but you don't know where to begin with that book set. We recommend going off an instructional order in terms of the most fundamental and basic level content for that specific topic. So we started with classical physics in this example, biomolecules, and then sensation and perception. You want to make sure that you have the fundamentals of these areas covered really well. This is usually the content review portion of studying, because we want to build from here. We don't want to open page 1 of our chemistry Kaplan study book and go throughout the entire book in one section, one sitting. You really want to be able to mix it up and go chapters 1 through 3 in each of the 7 books, and then 2 through 4, making sure that we are really covering fundamentals and working our way up to the more holistic approach throughout the different science areas. We at Kaplan put this all into a calendar. So I really love our calendar. It's very personable. You build it specific to your schedule, but it also includes an algorithm. So the more that you work with your content in our course, we're going to pull forward the areas that you have shown you need a little bit more help with, you need a little bit more understanding on, because that's the quickest way to get points on test day. It does not help you to review what you already know because you are going to most likely get those points correct either way on exam day. So we build out a schedule that maximizes your ability to get the most possible points. We also really recommend a strategic approach to using study resources. So, if you are going to pair together different resources for your approach, maybe you have a set of books that you've been given, maybe you have a different provider's set of flashcards or a question bank. We really recommend going off of this timeline here, which again is going to be sent to you after or provided to you after in the form of these slides. So, for every student who comes across my desk, I recommend starting with a diagnostic baseline. If you take a course with us, it's going to be the AAMC's first full length that they offer. They also offer that on their website. So, you can go take a practice test. We offer one at Kaplan that's free. And you want to use that as a rough outline for how to approach the rest of your studying. If you get physics and cars flagged, we know that we need to go back and do the most like content review on physics, and we need to spend a good amount of time focusing in on the different types of cars questions that we're going to encounter, create a study habit, study plan for those specifically. We don't really care about the score. It's more about understanding the exam and being able to move forward with an outline of how to approach it. So we're going to take our diagnostic, we're going to do some content refreshers across the different subjects, but really focusing in on those areas that we noted we struggled with the most. And then you take another full-length exam. If you purchase textbooks from Kaplan, it comes with three full-length exams. If you want to purchase other full-length exams, the AAMC has three available for purchase. If you take a course with Kaplan, we have all of the AAMC, so four AAMC exams, and then we also have 13 of our own, so you get 17 full lengths. They're available out there. These are also one of the biggest metrics of success on the MCAT is how many full-length practice tests you have taken. We tend to recommend around 7 or 8, including that diagnostic. So take a full-length practice test, work on the areas that you've noticed you need some help with. Kind of rinse and repeat until we get into a prep cycle. The prep cycle is where you take one practice test a week for the last month leading up to your exam. If I'm testing in March, all of April, I'm sitting down on Monday, taking a full-length exam, and then seeing about 4 to 5 different areas that I know I can really focus in on and get better on before next week's full length. Have an approach to those, get better in those areas, take another full length, find 4 to 5 different areas to approach. Or if I am consistently testing poorly in one subject that I'm dedicating a lot of time studying to, find a different way to approach it, switch up your study plan. So that's like a really effective way of taking 4 full lengths, answering over 400 questions within the last month leading up to test day, and then you'll have taken your MCAT and scored a 520 and getting into any med school you want in the country. So, the other first step you want to take is skipping what you already know. Again, if you're self-studying, this is going to take a lot of lift on your end to be able to accurately mark what you need to focus on and not spend any of those hours focusing on content that you already have down. We also have very realistic practice, so we include all of the AAMC's available materials and our own. We have a bunch of different types of access and resources for MCAT studying. We have those books, we have a boot camp, we have tutoring. If you get a great MCAT score and you want a little bit of help on the admissions portions, going over your personal statement, doing mock interviews, we offer that as well. So before we move on to GRE, I know Gavin has some MCAT studying testing experience that they would like to share with you at this time before we transition off of MCAT topic.
Yeah, I think everything you said is great and accurate. One thing that I would really emphasize is being taking the time to review your practice exams. That was for me the number one thing that progressed my score and helped me get through plateaus was I literally had a Google sheet, every single question, even if I got it right or wrong, I would go through reason why it's wrong, if it's a content issue, if I read the question incorrect. I think that's essential because the higher score you get, the harder it is to get the extra point. So when you're trying to get past a certain score, you can plateau. And that was the number one way for me to get over those plateaus. And then also for memorization heavy like subjects like bio, biochem, psych soc, I think Anki is essential for helping memorize all the information. And that's like a flashcard service. That's free. But yeah.
Yes, I've heard nothing but great things from Anki, so second endorsement. Awesome. And that's a really great resource. If you have any specific questions about building out a study schedule or approaching that, those different incorrect answers, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Gavin because that was fantastic advice, and that's a really great resource to have with you. All right. So now we are moving on to GRE. The GRE is a little bit different in terms of you are likely to take it if you're going into generic, a more or a less specified grad school. It's broken down into three technically different sections. There's different sections within those. So the analytical writing assessment, you can find different prompts. You're going to be presented with a prompt or paragraph of information that contains like flawed logic. You're going to need to be able to go through and identify flaws and then offer different suggestions on how to strengthen those arguments. You get a separate score for this section. So it's really important for the verbal section. That's the analytical reasoning. There's an integrated reasoning section that is going to be the newest section, but it's relatively new. If you've taken a GRE in the last like 5 to 8 years, it's going to be the same thing. So for this purpose, it's not necessarily like brand new, but you're going to have your ability to evaluate data measured. They're going to test your ability to work through different types of data, different types of problem solving, interpretation, quantitative comparison. This is um, very tricky for some students depending on their different, I'd say, strengths and weaknesses. Again, it comes down to you're going to have an unscored section where they are going to be testing future questions at the same time in comparison to present questions. So it's going to be unscored, but you're not going to know which section is unscored. We recommend approaching it as if it's every like question is going to be counted towards your score. We have some GRE prep courses available. I can talk more about GRE one-on-one. It's very like specific. There's not necessarily a calendar that goes into it. You kind of just need to know when you're applying and when aligns with your studying. We do recommend around 200 hours of studying for your GRE. It's what we found makes a competitive GRE score. Some students are studying for 2 months, others just depending on their schedule. It could be 4 months. So if you want to go over GRE itself, we can do that. My link is going to be at the end of the slide. And then we do have different options. We have a free GRE practice exam. We have free practice questions. We also have like an asynchronous course. We have books, a bunch of GRE help as well. All right, dental school. So the DAT, here's the timeline for applicants who are planning to enter in the fall. So in January to March, you're going to want to request letters of rec from faculty or dentists or the different individuals that you are going to ask. These letters cannot be uploaded until May, but we really recommend reaching out in the beginning of the year to just get in front of that process. You're also going to register for your DAT in this January to March window if you're testing in the fall. So then you kind of work down a little bit. April to May, you want to prepare for and take this exam. You want to try and test in like late spring or early summer. If you need the summer to prepare, you really want to take this exam by early August. Then in June, you get your application all ready, submission forms open. If you haven't taken this exam, you really need to take it in order to be able to hit that ideal primary window and primary application window. So July to August, we're walking down. If you need to retake the DAT, this is a good time to retake it. You're still going to be in the front end of that admission cycle if you need. That's why we like to recommend taking it early so that you can budget time to take it a second time if you really need to. Some schools honestly begin inviting applicants to interviews in late July or August, depending on how early you are in the process, which is another reason why we recommend getting it in on this front end of things, the front end section, so that you are have it done. You can begin the secondary process even quicker, and you're going to be beating out, honestly, a lot of students who are retesting or having to wait for letters of rec or having to wait to put their application together. The earlier you are, the more seats there are available, the more financial aid is available. It's just really beneficial. So then in September to December, you're going to begin to interview and continue interviewing. They might begin offering admissions to applications starting on December 1st. That's usually when they have the green light to begin offering admissions, and you'll be within the process of going to dental school, which is exciting. There's also some great information down here about how long it takes to get your scores back and how long that process goes. So, here's a breakdown of the different sciences that are tested on the DAT. We have a practice exam on our website. We have practice questions. You really want to work on the timing just like you do for GRE and MCAT and OAT. The timing portion is really important and it's a big hurdle, I'd say, for a lot of students the first time around. You'll have your natural sciences questions. It's 100 broken into different categories. Then you'll have your perceptual ability test. So this is being able to make visual and perceptive questions and inferences. Then you'll have a 15-minute break. We go into reading comprehension. It's going to consist of 50 questions. And then quantitative reasoning, we're ending with our math skills. All right. Optometry, OAT. So, it's really important to take a look at this as well. We have it color coded. We can kind of break it down in terms of key deadlines. We recommend that you take your OAT in the late spring of your junior year. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks after your test date to get your score back. Then you know you'll have about, I always recommend to budget out a month just in case it's on the four and the higher end of getting your scores back. So budget out about a month. If you want to be applying July 1st, you really should be testing in May because you want to give all of June to get your scores back. You want to begin prepping for this exam and in the early spring of your junior year or the fall before. It really just depends again on your timeline. If you want to walk through your timeline, I can definitely help you do that. Most students are spending around 250 hours on this exam, broken up across however many different months it takes them or weeks that it takes them. You really want to be prepared to submit in July because the sooner you get your application in, as with the rest of these schools, the sooner you can kick off secondary, kick off interviews, and be offered a spot. You really want to be on the front end no matter what your application cycle is. It's always advantageous to have it ready to go by the ideal like first week or two that the application's open. OAT, it's going to be very similar to our DAT. You're going to have physics questions at the second section, instead of our perceptive questions. So you're going to see the vectors, energy and momentum, thermodynamics, magnetism, and optics. Other than that, it's very similar in terms of breakdown for the DAT. We have a bunch of different comprehensive courses, resources, anything like that on our website to go over DAT, OAT prep. We have practice courses, practice questions. It's very similar timelines and study tips and resources for all of these exams. Obviously, the MCAT is going to be the most intensive exam out of the four that we covered today. So we do spend the most time covering that exam, but all of the principles trickle down no matter what exam you're taking. Um, if you want to talk about any of this, either MCAT or DAT, OAT, GRE, anything like that, this is my information. My email is going to be thehaley.miller@kaplan.edu, and then that you can book me link takes you straight to my calendar. So you can book some time there, or if my available times don't work for you, just shoot me an email and we can book some time off my calendar as well. Everything's going to be virtual. I'm based out of Washington State. So unless I go visit Iowa, they're going to be on a Google Meet. And then if you want to redeem that discount, if you want to raise your score, most of our courses, including DAT and OAT, offer a money back guarantee of some sort. So if you complete your course as prescribed, you see on average about a 15 point increase on your final exam from your baseline. A lot of our courses come with some sort of money back or score higher guarantee, which is great to check out for your specific case. But here's my information. And then we also have a student brand on ambassador who's actually on campus. So if you have any questions about stuff related to on campus, like club related, or you honestly just want to talk to another peer about this process or courses, anything like that, you can reach out to Ella. She also goes to school there and she'll be able to help you with things more on campus. Other than that, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm going to go ahead and hang out and answer any questions that might come up. But just in case we don't have any questions, it was lovely being here and presenting to you all this evening. And thank you for your time. Chat questions are great. Email questions are great. If there's anything that's like pressing right now, we can go for it, but also don't feel pressured to ask questions. So, whatever works for you. I'll always be available as a resource in case we can't think of anything tonight.
I actually have a question. So for
Yeah.
med schools, I've been seeing a lot of multiple different kinds of exams, not just the MCAT. Are those required or are those like just newer things that are on the side?
Yeah. Do you have like an example of any, like the pre-professional ones, or is it what other type of
There's
exams have you
one
seen?
that's like ethical, like ethics
Yeah.
based,
Yep.
things like that.
Okay. So the MCAT is the only thing that is going to be blanket required, and that's what you put into your primary. So your primary application is going to be your GPA, your MCAT, personal statement, letters of reference, all of your experiences. And then you send that out, and all of the schools who are interested in pursuing you as an applicant, they will reach back out to you and let you know how to fill out their secondary application. Secondary applications are where those are going to be um, noted if they're required or not. You can also kind of take a look ahead of time and see what school you're applying to, if they require the ethical exam, if they require like a writing exam. Some schools require that. You can always take a look at that ahead of time. It varies from institution to institution. Some of them are moving away from them, some of them are moving toward them. Unfortunately, there's no like rhyme or reason to what med schools are allowed to require in terms of their process. Everyone is different. So some people find it really helpful to take those exams because they know four of the five schools that are on their top list are going to require it. A lot of the time, students will take their MCAT and get that done and out of the way. And then once they've applied to their med schools, they've done their primaries, then they'll sit down and take those secondary exams because the process is a little bit out of your hands at that point while they're reviewing your primary. So it's a good time to sit and take that secondary exam of any sort. And then you'll have it able to submit to those secondaries. So it's unfortunately and it depends answer. A lot of MCAT prep is it depends in terms of your personal circumstances and what different schools require. But it's always worth checking out ahead of time. That way you can factor in any sort of preparation. Thanks for asking.
I can ask a question.
Okay.
I was wondering, out of curiosity, what have you heard from people that are studying for the MCAT? Like one of their like things they regret not doing or
Yeah.
doing, or anything that you got that people would recommend for future students that are taking the MCAT.
Yeah, tons of stuff. So, I think self-studying, if you want to be successful, you're going to have a plan. So some people get schedules off of Reddit. Some people, we have like a free sample schedule on our website. Copy that into a calendar. You really just want to have an approach because 350 hours of studying is a lot of time stretched over 3 to 4 months, and it can be really easy to kind of fall off track or to spend time not efficiently on a topic. So having a plan is really helpful. Practice tests, they are a little bit of a bummer because you want to sit for them start to finish every time you take a practice test. It's the best way to mimic the real thing. And that's a lot of times that you're going to sit for a 7 hour exam, right? But it turns out to be one of the best indicators of score. You want to take every single practice test as if it's the real thing and it's really going to count. That is really recommended. Again, 7 to 8. It seems like not a lot, and then you take one and it's a lot. And then you want to spend about 3 hours at least reviewing that exam too. So just a lot of time built out. And then being able to pivot is a big one. You want to have honest conversations with yourself and know when your study habits aren't working and when to approach it differently. Because, as to Gavin's point, like plateauing is very hard because you get to within what feels like 3 points reach of your ideal score, but you have to make really big gains in order to get points at that phase of getting better. So having the notes and having the tracking and having all of the data to really help you decide where to go and how to change your approach or what isn't working or what is working is a lot of work sometimes. It's a heavy load, especially while you're taking other classes and trying to shadow and trying to have a job. All of these things, it's very difficult. I'm very impressed with students who apply directly out of undergrad because you have to juggle a lot of responsibilities in order to be able to go straight into med school these days. But having an approach and being able to pivot is definitely helpful. Um, Content review is kind of a hot topic. Some people feel like they spend too much time on content review in the beginning. There's different schools of thought. That's why the diagnostic is really helpful because it can kind of guide you in a sense of you don't have to do the entire exam's worth of content review if you're struggling in just two subjects. But definitely I would say spend like 2 weeks doing content review, and if you want to phase out of it, then you can, but having a good foundation to go off of is really important as well. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful and not like redundant from this entire conversation.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add, it's studying for the MCAT is completely different than studying for a college exam. You can't know everything. There's too much information to know 100% versus a college exam. You need to know everything. Um, so that's one thing to consider when you're doing content review as well.
Yep. And it's the exam itself is content based. It's also a strategic exam. So you're going to start to see different connections through different types of questions. You're going to start to see patterns in different types of questions. Sometimes students struggle more with the phrasing and the wording of questions than the actual content itself. So spending time with MCAT level questions is a great way to understand the exam, understand how it's tested, get to the foundation of what they're asking of you, because a question might ask you what immediately happens after a chemical reaction, and the full answer might be equilibrium, like we reach homeostasis, but technically that's incorrect because they're asking you what happened first, not what the end answer is. So just being able to understand how to approach the questions itself is really a key for this exam, and that's strategy based, luckily, so we can get better at things other than just content review if that's not where we're struggling. All right. Well, it was great talking with y'all this evening. Um, I would love to answer any other questions if they come up via email or chat or anything. You have my information, you'll have Ella's information. I'll be sure to be in contact with everyone, but thank you so much for having us this evening. This was lovely.
Thank you so much, Haley. And so, for our members today who joined for the raffle or for the giveaway, we actually wrote down all of your guys' names and we will be sending the results of like who won that afterwards. Haley, do you have like a time frame of when that'll be done?
Yeah, so we will most likely have the drawing done by tomorrow, and then you'll know by end of workday tomorrow, so 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, so guys, keep
Beautiful.
an eye out on your emails for around tomorrow evening.
Yes, absolutely. Anticipation. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haley.